welcome to those attending and also to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is a meeting of the Children, Families and Education Select Committee. My name is Councillor Heena Makwana and I'm the chair of this committee. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the broadcast. Please note that members of the committee may be using tablets or laptops to view the agenda. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For those in the room, please switch any mobile devices to silent before the meeting starts, and when you're invited to speak, please ensure you turn your microphone on so that you can be heard in the recording. For those watching via YouTube, if you're so minded, you can complete one of our resident feedback forms. These can be found in the information section underneath the YouTube video. These forms are intended to help us improve the way that we run our meetings. So before we go through our agenda, I'd like to introduce colleagues in the room. So to my right is Councillors Gohill and Smallwood. To my left, Ryan from the Democratic Services Officer, Councillor Sweeting, Gill and Mr Tony Little, our co-opted member. And we have Officers Anthony Madden, Kudagwashe Karashwa and Alex Coman and Debbie Scarborough joining us this evening. So thank you and welcome to you all. So we move to agenda item 1. Apologies for absence, Ryan.
Yeah, so we've got apologies from Councillor Garg and from Councillor Batt.
Okay. Item 2 is declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting. Are there any? No. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Do we agree the minutes? Agreed. Thank you. 4, to confirm that the items of business marked as Part 1 will be considered in public and the items marked as Part 2 will be considered in private. There are no Part 2 items, so we move straight to item 5, which is the Learn Hillingdon Annual Self-Assessment. So, Debbie, over to you. We are, like I said to you, we've take the report as being read, so we'll go straight to questions if that's okay. Any questions? Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Debbie, for the report. It was a very interesting, read. My question is around. I noticed in the report it said that only 20% of the learners were male, as opposed to 80% being female. I was just sort of wondering why, and if there's anything, is there anything we could be doing to increase that, or is that just kind of an accepted feature of adult learning locally?
Okay, thank you. I think it's yes to all of that. It's pretty standard in adult education because most of the people that we're working with are very, very low skilled and just starting their education journey again as adults. We used to have more men because we had more take up of evening classes and they tended to come to those. Evening classes really dropped off after COVID and didn't ever quite recover. We still do them, but they're not in as much demand, which means that although we offer them, they don't fill. And I think it's mainly because a lot of our learners come from all kinds of backgrounds, ethnic and so on backgrounds, and so there tends to be quite a strong cultural bias of the men go to work and the women stay at home, and within that, when the evening classes sort of drops off, we still offer, but they don't take them. That kind of eased off a bit. That kind of went away because I think the demand just dropped from men because after COVID and with the cost of living crisis and so on, there's more of them working, whereas the women come while the children are at school. So the bulk of our classes run within school hours to accommodate the women. And certainly most of my colleagues that I know around the country have the same thing. I mean, we did improve ours. For a long time it's been stuck at 80-20, and now it's closer to 75. I think it's something like 76-24 or something. So we're gradually getting there. But we tend to get men that are older who are carers or might be widowers, or something's happened to their wives and they're suddenly having to cook and so on, and they tend to come to cookery classes and learn how to make healthy meals and things now, because it's, in many cases, they're older and it's the first time they've had to learn to cook. So the demography of the learning is really changing quite a lot.
Thank you, Chair, for the follow-up. Thank you for explaining that. I was just not to make assumptions about anyone who's coming to these classes in any way, shape or form, but if there are members who have partners who might have maybe expressed an interest, have we considered sort of reaching out through the people who are attending already? Like, just to go off your example that you gave, a wife might come during school hours, the husband might be interested as well, but the timings don't work. But have we asked, is there any possibility that any time will work for them? And maybe it's something, then we can take that feedback and then build on that. Or is it just a blanket no? And have we explored those different avenues to try and improve the service, I guess? If not, we can take it as a suggestion, maybe?
No, I'd absolutely take it as a suggestion. Interestingly, most of our learners, with the information we can get, most of them come because of word of mouth. And that seems to be a recruitment characteristic of working with adults. For a long time it's been known that young people will find somewhere over the internet. Their first port of call, if they want to buy something or look for something, straight online. Whereas with adults it tends to be ask a friend, ask a family member. So there is quite a lot of that, and we do sometimes still get couples coming in, and sometimes they're in different classes for lots of reasons. But I don't know, I don't know I'm really at a loss as to what we can do. We've faced this same problem for the last 15 years, that we just can't seem to attract as many men into the classes. When they come in, they really like it. But I don't know why it is. It's a mystery. The one thing that consoles me is it seems to fox everybody else as well. But we'll try anything, because we'd really like to change that proportion.
I just want to add to that. I think one takeaway from this, obviously, it's not just a local problem, it's a bit of a regional, national and all that sort of thing, but also to say that our offer is provided out there, at all time, regardless of gender, regardless of any other form of, obviously you take into account the cultural needs and everything, but we are there and we're available to everyone who wants to attend. And I think any suggestions about how to increase the reach into our residents, that is very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sweeting.
I've said it before, but this service is a good one. The report says it, and Ofsted has said it many times. So what would make it better?
We'd love some more funding. Even from the Department for Education, now the Department for Work and Pensions. I think that there are always changes. There are always changes in staffing. There are changes in national priorities and local priorities that we have to adapt to, quite rightly. So we have to be fleet of foot. With the new government in, we've just got some sort of policies and things and strategies coming through. So as we plan for next year, those will start to kick in. So we'll be looking at, it's always been a priority of ours to try to get people into work, but that's really got to move up a notch again. I think, interestingly, one of the strengths that we have is that we work with those facing the most disadvantage, and they're usually people with the lower skills levels. So we do one of those jobs that is only visible when it's not done well. Do you know what I mean? If somebody's improving their skills, their confidence builds, and their ability and their sense of what's possible for their own lives improves and builds and grows. But still, if you look outside or you look at any of the national or local data, what you hear is X many people don't have these skills and don't have those skills. So it's one of those things that is quite difficult to prove a negative in a way, because we're doing it, but you can't always see it, because it could take 5 years for somebody to start with us and then end up to the point where they could move on into work or go on to the college or to university or whatever was their next step. So I think that what could improve it, probably we still need, and it's going to be an ongoing issue, we need to build more sort of stronger links with different workplaces. So there are clearer links into employment. And that's been something we've been trying for a long time, but oftentimes people will leave us to go into work because of economic issues. So we used to get a lot more people heading on to A-level type courses. Let's take something like childcare. They'd want to work in a school, they'd go and train as their teaching assistant, and then they'd stay on with us working in a school as their placement and become a higher level teaching assistant at level 3. So that gave them a much better career option, and some of those then went into teaching. But for the last few years, since the economic crash again and, more problems economically, they've not been able to do that. They've got their level 2, they've been volunteering with the school, they've got a job in a school, and they've stopped because what they need is to put food on the table. So on the one hand, what I'd love is a way to get closer links, working with the Chamber of Commerce and so on, which we're working on, we have been for a long time. But on the other hand, I know that the people that those businesses need that extra, they need the extra level, they need A-level standard qualified people to go into those jobs, and most of our learners can't afford to wait that long. Do you see what I mean? They have to. So it's not necessarily one that we can change dramatically ourselves, but we're still working towards it.
But I would, if I may, just to quickly add, to say I agree with you, Councillor, about being a good service, and we had, only last year we had officers saying, this is a good service, and I was just looking at part of the report that says our retention rate is 95%, pass rate is over 97%, and achievement is almost 93%. That's significant achievement, so that is credit to the service. And obviously, people like Debbie and the service, they kind of know what they need to do more and what they want to do more. So clearly, we know how we're trying to do that, and any support to support us in achieving some of that will be really appreciated. Thank you.
Well, it's that money question, isn't it? I always ask this one as well. Funding comes from the GLA, doesn't it? And I've always asked, are we doing a bit better now? And if not, what are we trying to lever that to provide more funding? And how much funding actually do we as a council provide?
Sorry, we always aim to try to break even financially. Actually, the council does put in some money. They put in, I think it's in the region of about £50,000-60,000. But the idea is that we're trying to get to a point where we won't need that we can manage on our own. Working with the GLA has been really good. I've got to say I'm a big fan of theirs. They're clear about what they want. They're clear about what they'll fund. They have, you can tell they have a good knowledge of their own regional needs. So, for instance, the national funding rules might say, we'll fund, let's take level 3s for argument's sake, so A-level standard. They'll fund this, they've basically got a list of courses they'll fund and qualifications they'll fund. If it's not that, you either can't deliver it or people have to pay privately. But the GLA have extended that so that they'll open it up to more people, which has been fantastic for us because it does enable us to get those people on. So, for instance, nationally it's the national living wage, but in London it's the London living wage. So if they earn the London living wage or less, they can get the courses completely free. They don't have to put any money in. Whereas if we were working in Bucks, just outside London, that level would be at a lower rate because the London living wage is that little bit higher. So the GLA have got a good understanding of their own region and the needs there, and are very clear with us about what we can and can't deliver. That said, there is less funding around. It's as simple as that. There have been funding cuts. We've all seen the budgets and we all know the issues nationally. But again, we have a very close relationship with them, so we can pick up the phone and talk to them if we get any problems, or, and lots of places around the country had a 3-point-something% cut in their grant this year, whereas the GLA have split that over 2 years, which makes it much more possible for us to absorb the funding cuts. So it's been really positive working with them.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
Can I return to the gender balance question and ask two things? One is, has there been any research on this or surveys that explore it? And the second one is, has consideration been given to offering courses that might appeal to more manual skills and traditional technical skills? The courses that you kind of list here are mostly of a different nature, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't think there has been any research done on the gender imbalance, if I'm honest. I don't think, I mean, I hate to be boring about it, but I don't think there's been any resources to do funding on that, research on that, I mean, to any great extent, anyway, certainly that I've heard of. It's a tricky line to walk. What we find is that we get a better balance in things like our provision to help people who are facing mental health issues. And as I said earlier, we do some work around obesity. That's one of the council priorities. So we do healthy cooking, healthy living, healthy eating. And that we tend to get a better balance between men and women. They're not qualification courses. They are they're aimed at some specific issue, and so it's a very clear purpose and reason. We also tend to get more men in English courses and ESOL courses, English for speakers of other languages, and we get more men in IT. So our digital skills will have proportionately more men. You're right, our childcare has proportionately fewer men. Same with health and social care. I think that it's tricky. I know exactly what you mean about the more sort of male-dominated areas, but we work next door to a college that provides all that. So we have to look at ourselves in the context of the local picture. It would be madness for us to run something that the college is doing up the road, you know. So we plan our provision alongside and in conjunction with what's going on locally, and it just seems silly, really.
I think we wouldn't want to duplicate, because obviously we need to use the resource the best way possible. And I think in terms of some of the focus, as we've heard about, English, IT, things like this are really important for our residents to kind of help them towards independence. Some of them, could be quite young people and all that sort of thing. So it's all the preparation for independence, and it's that sort of preparation for employment as well. Because sometimes this can be the first step towards an employment. You have to be able to, be in an interview. You have to be able to fill in a CV, to send something in. This course has actually helped quite a lot of that. And again, doesn't duplicate what the college does, because we don't want to do something that already exists. But I think they're quite helpful for our residents of either gender. And picking up from your question, Mr. Little, I will have a look also to see if there's any research out there, national or international, but especially in England, because that'll be quite an interesting one to read if there is anything out there. And if I find anything, I'll make sure to share.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Sweeting?
Could I ask about the service engagement with the traveller community and for those in temporary accommodation, which is mentioned in the report? How is that actually delivered? My ward has got, a traveller facility there, and I know Bell Farm actually is supportive of that. Do you use Bell Farm? And
thanks. We have. Sorry. It's just not an automatic move, is it? We definitely have worked with Bell Farm. We work, really, it depends where the need is. So, to be completely honest with you, I don't know the geographic location of the last project we did, but we go out into the community quite a lot. Travellers, the whole thing is quite hit and miss. Sometimes we're working with that group And with all those really sort of targeted groups are very similar. You'll get lots of, I really want to do that when you go and speak to them. And when it comes to it, 2 people turn up. So you get a bit of that. Likewise, the next week, we kind of hang on, and we do that a few times, because another week you might get 10 people. But it's difficult to get a real sense of the reason behind that. We try to use mechanisms to draw them in. So the last thing that was really successful for us that we worked on with travellers, which is one of the things we did last year, was we used flowers and flower arranging as a hook, and it brought lots of the ladies in, sometimes with their young children, but we worked with the NHS, and they came to the sessions and were doing things like talking about vaccinations, and I mean, I can't remember exactly what was on their agenda, but we agreed, I think we did 6 or 8 weeks or something of this. They were coming in, they were messing with flowers, they were learning about them, they loved all that. But there was a break, and during the break we'd disappear off and the NHS would do their bit and talk and try and get the messages they wanted across. So, but it's, we've not been able to run that again. We're desperate to, we'd love to. It just depends. Sometimes you get them and they're involved, and then they disappear, and you just can't again. So we just keep plugging away, really.
I think it's important to say that sort of cultural sensitive approach and cultural sensitive engagement with our residents, from all over the borough, and that consistent engagement in different ways, that is the key to it by the sounds of it, isn't it? That's what makes a difference. Because, you don't engage the same way with everybody at all times. And I think keeping at it and not giving up is quite important.
And those in temporary accommodation, how does that work?
Well, again, we've had good experiences and less good. And it's about getting the engagement. So we deliver all over the place. We deliver in classrooms and in schools, and we deliver in libraries, and so wherever the nearest location is that makes sense, we'll deliver. Otherwise, obviously, our own centres. It's the same issue we find with travellers. I think one of the things that we struggle with that particular group is their mental health. I suggested that we try going in with some mental health awareness and sort of how to build resilience, those sorts of courses, because you go and you do an initial assessment session and you talk to them and they're all for it and they all want to go because they really want to improve, usually their English. But when it comes to it, you can't get them to come out and to come and join the class. And I think it's because they're so low that they just can't face it. So the last conversation I had with our manager was, think about it a different direction. Think about doing that and don't go anywhere near English. A bit like we did with the flowers. The point of that really was to get the NHS in there. We used flowers as the mechanism. See if we can find something. It could be art therapy, or, use something completely different, exercise, or to get them engaged, and then gradually the English will come, or whatever it is, whatever the skills are. But I think that the problems they face are so complex. Sometimes it doesn't matter about whether the provision's good, bad, or indifferent. They just can't cope with it, and obviously we also have to watch sort of to make sure that we've not got staff sitting around because nobody's in the room with them. We can only do that for so long before we have to pull out, and then we try again another time. So it's just getting that balance.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, so we can bring this item to a close. Debbie, thank you very much for joining us this evening. There's lots of good work going on, so please pass on our thanks to the staff and everyone who's involved. Okay, thank you. So we note the report, I've noted, So we move to agenda item 6, which is the Youth Justice Strategy Update. Who am I passing over to? Who would like to speak first? Yeah? Good.
Thank you. My name is Kudakwashe Kurashwa, and I'm the Head of Service for Youth and Adolescent Service. I'm here to provide an update with regards to the Youth Justice 5-year strategic plan, which I believe was brought to this committee before, but it's just an update. There are two key recommendations that we're making for the committee to note. One, the progress and the strategic direction that we are taking as a local authority in terms of supporting our children via the Youth Justice Service. And secondly, the key priority areas, which is the focus area that we are looking at. We are looking at the focus on prevention, early intervention, restorative justice, and the focused work on victims and focusing on our children as well. So those are the two major areas of focus. So we've got 5 key priority areas which are aligned to our 5-year strategic plan, and that is one, addressing overrepresentation and disproportionality, which we're seeing as a significant issue within the Youth Justice Service, and I think we've made some significant progress in terms of addressing that area of work as a partnership. So we've got a co-produced disproportionality action plan around that. That's the first item. And secondly, it's about the child-first focus. Everything that we're doing, we're making sure that children are at the heart of what we're doing. And that includes the co-production element. How are we ensuring that the voice of the child is quite at the center, and we action on it. Anything for children without the children is not for the children, so we need to make sure that the children are really involved in the processes, both in terms of the design, the implementation, and the evaluation of our interventions. So that's the key focus area. And thirdly, offending doesn't happen. It happens in the context of harms happening within the community, and I think if we're looking at our key commitments, our work is filling into 2 key areas of our 5 commitments as a council. That is ensuring that we are in safe and stronger communities, and we've got our children growing up in thriving, healthy households. So that's the focus that we are putting our efforts on, to ensure that we enable harms to be repaired within communities. So we are focusing not only on the work with our children, but also the work that we are doing with our victims. And lastly, I want to talk about the key focus on reducing offending and reoffending, and I think that's the major mission statement. That's where the tire meets the ground. That's the reason for our existence. So the focus is on reducing that reoffending numbers, and I think, as you can see from the report, we've made some significant progress so far. The data is telling us that we're making significant progress in terms of reducing the number of first-time entrants into the Youth Justice Service, and we're seeing a consistent, sustained improvement in that area. Secondly, we have seen continued reduction in the number of children coming into custody due to offending, and I think that is really a quick win that we have seen in the work that we are doing. Thirdly, we are also seeing an improved uptake of our education, employment and training for our children within the Youth Justice Service, because these are the children with specific needs. We have seen that by the time they reach the Youth Justice Service, there are other services that they would have come across. So we are looking at enabling our support from as early as possible before they reach the age of 10, that is the age of criminal accountability, where they come to the Youth Justice Service. What are we doing in the early intervention stages of our work? And that aligns with the broader framework of the transformation work that is happening in the Council around family first, early help, and intervening early before things fester. So that's what exactly we're doing, and reducing stigma as well on families when they are accessing help, particularly children who come through the Youth Justice Service. You would see that there is a lot of stigma that is attached to that. So we are designing our services to ensure that they take away that level of stigma and ensure that they are receiving the right level of intervention. So I think probably in a nutshell, I would say that's the main reason why we have brought this to the committee for overview and also scrutiny and any questions that may be required.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And again, lots of great work going on. We can see that from the report, so well done to everybody who's involved with that. I'm going to open the questions. I have a question around the funding for Project Turnaround. So I understand that funding ended in March 25, and the data indicates that Hillingdon has exceeded the MAJ's quota for children's engagement. So is there any chance that we can secure any additional funding, perhaps?
Thank you. I'm pleased to advise that we have been notified that the turnaround funding is progressing into the coming year. We are still waiting to hear the funding modality of that, but they will communicate to us in due course.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Small.
Thank you very much, Chair. The report talks a bit about multi-agency working. I just wanted you to give me potentially some good examples of where that where that multi-agency working has worked well, and then what the outcomes of that were to drive down the reoffending.
Thank you. So I would want to highlight the key area, or one key area of our work that I have highlighted is the issue of supporting children with additional needs and multi-layered needs. We are talking of speech and language. We're seeing children who are neurodivergent. We're looking at children with chronic health conditions, and we're seeing an overrepresentation of these children within the Youth Justice Service. We're collaborating really well with our partners in health. The CNWL, we're collaborating, working together. We have got an offer in terms of speech and language screening for every child who comes through the Youth Justice Service. And I think that has been a fantastic piece of work, because it enables us to have a holistic understanding of the needs that the children come through. We have to understand how we are able to package our interventions and design them in a way that allows our children to receive the interventions in an effective way. So I think that's one area that I can highlight. We've seen some of the reduction in some of the issues that we are like reoffending. When we know that the children's needs are these, we package we design the interventions that can reach them. So it means that's why we are seeing the numbers going down the way they are. I believe it is because of that. That's number one. And secondly, I want to talk about the disproportionality action plan that we have just developed, because we have seen that there is an overrepresentation of children, particularly from the global majority children within the Youth Justice Service. We looked at our data. We're looking at partnership-wide data. We did a partnership survey with all our stakeholders, health, education, police, probation, and we're collaborating together. We developed a co-produced plan, and this plan is monitored by the Youth Justice Strategic Partnership Board in terms of operational oversight. So I think there is a lot of work that is happening from a partnership standpoint that is helping us to address some of the issues that we are talking about, addressing stop and search practice within that. So we've got serious commitments from our partners, and I think this is one of our strongest areas of work. Thank you.
I think I'll just add something that from a more kind of strategic level, if you like, in terms of the multi-agency work and the impact and the effectiveness of multi-agency work. It's also monitored through our Children's Safeguarding Board. So we do have a regular high-risk panel where individual children are discussed, and the support required is agreed between participating agency, and then any teams and any patterns from this group will go to a more strategic group. They sit on top of that, which looks at the strategic high risks, and that group will analyze what resources are required, what practice are required, what activities are required across the partnership to meet particular needs in particular areas of the borough or particular cohort of children and young people. And then the activity of that group reports into the children's board. And the other thing that I want to say, just because stop and search has been mentioned, I just trigger something just to say that in terms of that multi-agency work, our young people are part of that multi-agency work as well. Stop and search, when the police were doing a review in stop and search, our young people were part of those reviews. They met with the police and they talked to them about their views and about how they're affected by it and what they think needs to be changed, and that's been taken into account. And I'm pretty sure quite a few of the members here tonight would have done the walking in our shoes training. That was delivered to police, that was delivered to health colleagues, and that is all part of bringing that multi-agency together to understand the experience of our children and what's required for to be put in place for them.
Just briefly, just to add, the benefits of having a very robust strategic youth justice board is really driving and scrutinising what's taken place with all the partners, who are very well represented from, as could have mentioned, from health colleagues, but public health, obviously probation, our colleagues in the Met, really making sure that everyone's been held to account, but driving the necessary change. And I think that's reflected in some of the statistics that's detailed in the report just now, particularly around about reoffending, with the rate falling down from 40.5% to 37.5% according to the DOG. The local estimate is 32.8%, which again, well, quite far below the London average. But even a good on-the-ground example of the multi-agency working, we have our Access service, which is very much soft intelligence, but as a form of early intervention with partners based across the borough. We're already seeing that significant drop-off in first-time entrants before they've even offended in the first instance, that we're doing that early intervention and preventative work. And again, going back to 2019-2020, there was 64 young people, whereas more recently in 2023-24, that had dropped to 46.
Great, thank you. Councillor Sweeting.
This is a good news story, and it's a very well written report, and I thank all the officers that have been dealing with this. I'm sort of stepping back here and knowing what residents are saying about youth offending, and they're seeing things in the high street, especially shoplifting. So is there any correlation about the good news story that we've got on the offending rate dropping to any drop in, if you like, the police part of this, which is the convictions, the finding of some of these youngsters and convicting some of these youngsters? Because certainly in certain areas there has been a real spike in particularly shoplifting. So is there a correlation between the drop to a drop in what the police are telling us about numbers coming in to the system?
Thank you. That is a very good question. And I wouldn't say that there is a correlation in a way, but I can say that there is a lot of work that is being put to try and address the children entering the youth justice service. So the focus of our interventions, for example, the turnaround project that was spoken about, is the early intervention. So before the children, we're trying to offer them diversionary pathways such that they don't enter the criminal justice system, because once they enter into that, it may be really difficult to turn things around for them. So that's why we are focusing more on the work that is being done by our Access service in terms of identifying those hotspots, looking at our data, which areas are those. We're working with our community safety partners. We're working with our partners within the borough to try and identify and respond to those areas. We understand that that is not a problem that we can completely say tomorrow we have resolved, there is no offending at all. It's an intractable, wicked problem that requires us to continually engage with it and ensuring that we provide a service. But turnaround, engage is also another intervention. So if those children are picked up, we're trying to engage them in teachable, reachable moments. So for example, they are arrested for an offense. When they go to custody, they are likely to be more receptive to interventions during that moment. So we've got the Engage program that also addresses some of these issues to engage those children and young people early. So yeah, in terms of the good news story, I'm talking about the official numbers and the figures that come through the Youth Justice Service, but we also have interventions that are also community facing in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Alex just wants to add something.
Just very quickly, because I think something that was said about the whole ethos of early intervention and that early identification and early intervention, that is pretty much at the core of what we do in children's services as a whole. The new legislation in social care, it's focusing even more on the early intervention, engagement with the family, engagement with the communities, and that is quite at the core of what has been described, quite at the core of what we are doing. So I think it's important to know that it's not just those young people who are shoplifting or arrested or they're in the police custody. It's how do we reach young people and our community and our groups even before that time and provide those diversionary activities, engagement, and pretty much it comes down to understanding our community, understanding our young people, understanding what's needed. And I think we are pretty good at that, and we are. So all the projects that we have in place and all the teams we have in place are focusing significantly on that early intervention and preventing that first offence, and using those teachable and reachable moments to address that.
I mean, the report was very, very interesting. At one point,
Councillor Sweeting, I think Anthony just wanted to add something.
Sorry, just before the conversation moves on. I was just going to add there, very, very mindful of the impact on communities as well. I think the strategy is already showing that there's a good balance there between young people and that focus on early intervention and prevention. We don't want this taking place in communities and affecting local residents in the first place, but very much mindful of the impact on victims and restorative justice, and the participation rate with victims is really quite high presently, with up to 90% engaging in that work afterwards. But as we mentioned earlier there, the focus is preventing it taking place in the first instance because of the diversions.
Yeah, I'll just add a final comment on that as well. Just referring back to our corporate parenting panel recently as an example of the Safer Haze project. Would that be an example of the good work that's been going on and how our young people are involved in it as well? So, yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Sweeting, please.
Right, third time lucky. Children have stated in the report that they are more likely to engage with interventions if the venue is in familiar surroundings. So, have we got parity? Is this evenly distributed throughout the borough as a whole? I mean, obviously we've got more young people in certain areas and a denser population in certain areas. So is there parity, equality?
Yeah, so in terms of the Youth Justice Service, our work is referral driven, so we work with every child from any side. But what we do is we've got the youth offer, which is part of the youth and adolescent service. So our youth offer is quite a mobile service, and we are working to make it even more mobile to ensure that we have got better reach into the different areas of the community, and we are working on modalities on getting the service reach. But at the moment, the mobile and detached teams are able to reach any area of the borough as long as we have got intelligence to indicate or data showing us that there is a need in this area. Then we can target or maybe allocate resources on a need basis. Yeah.
Ms. Little.
Thank you. As Councillor Sweeting has said, it's another example of what appears to be very good work and with ambitions that seem to me to be going in the right direction. You mentioned the partnership working that you do, but I didn't hear the word schools in any of that. Would you like to say something about how you worked with schools and how effective it is?
Absolutely. I did only mention certain partners that we work with, but we have got a lot of partners that we're working with, and we were working very well. With schools, we've got a very strong working relationship with our education department. So as I highlighted in our 5-year strategic plan, we've got an ET officer who is allocated to the Youth Justice Service. This ET, Education Training and Employment Officer. So this is an officer who is attached to the Youth Justice Service, but is co-located in the Education Department. The purpose of that is to ensure that we improve our working relationships with our schools and supporting our children to access education, to access training, and also to access training opportunities. Because some of these children may want to access employment, so we need to support them with that. We also have a new role, which is the designated social care officer. And we're working collaboratively with the designated social care officer to ensure that we link up with our key stakeholders. The alternative provisions, the APs, as you may know them, our closest ally within the Youth Justice Service, for example, the Skills Hub. We work collaboratively with them. They attend the Operational High Risk Panel. They are part of the key strategic platforms where we discuss and design and implement and review interventions as well. So we've got a really strong working relationship with schools, particularly with the SEN teams. We're working also very closely with the SAS team with the education department. So I think that's an area we are quite strong.
Councillor Gill?
There's some really good success stories throughout the report. I mean, one of them was the strong accommodation and education outcomes. And my question was around that. We know they're very strong at the point of exit from within our service, but do we do any tracking from when they do leave our service, maybe 6 months or a year down the line? Are they still in education or jobs or any sort of training?
That's a very interesting. I think this is something that we will take over from here for reflection, and I think it's a very good suggestion. Yeah.
I mean, just to add briefly, we do know that our engagement, as you say, during the intervention is successful. Up to 87% of young people are engaged in education on a full-time basis by completion of the intervention. We do look at non-school aged children, bearing in mind the age is sort of 10 to 18, but we're pragmatic around about that transition to adulthood, and we work with, again, our multi-agency partners, including tertiary education, to try and make sure that all the good work that was done pre-18 continues into young adulthood. But again, there's been improvement there from 56% to 67% around about the non-school aged children in education, training and employment, so that pathway into young adulthood. But a very good point, we will look into that in a little bit more detail.
Great. Any other questions or comments? No? Oh, no? Okay. So we can bring this item to a close as well. So, committee, we need to note the progress in strategic direction and continued focus on prevention, early intervention and restorative justice as key priorities. Yeah? Yeah? Noted. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Kadarashe, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. So, agenda item 7, which is the fostering review. Findings, conclusions and recommendations. So Ryan has put together the document which had the draft recommendations, and we've had officer input, so that's been circulated. So I think what might be helpful is if we look at that document with officer comments on it and kind of put together now maybe our final recommendations. So what I have done is I've looked at that document and I've kind of lifted out the key recommendations. So if I summarise it, and then obviously if you have input, please do join in. So number 1, I'd say, is probably to develop an introduction pack for children, so which provides children with all the essential information they need to feel prepared and supported when starting a new placement and where possible during placement moves. So obviously, I know I'm saying this and it's quite long-winded, but obviously we'll need to shorten that into a simple recommendation. Number 2 was to include a voice of the child section in the All About Me profiles. Yeah. 3, where are they now stories on the website if young people are happy to share their stories. Number 4, review and develop the foster carer training programme, so thinking about specialist foster carer pathways, especially, for example, for young people with complex needs. And then 5, review current peer support initiatives and develop opportunities to increase engagement and support. So, Alex, also please feel free to contribute any comments on that, but Councillor Gohill.
Thanks, Chair. I think those are that pretty much sums it up. The only thing I might add is just for the last one, if we can extend that to foster carers and also the children being fostered as well, because I think it will benefit both. So yeah, if that can be extended slightly, that would be great.
Okay, great. Councillor Sweeting.
I'm looking at the website, improve information, website information. I know that we've got a strong presence. It says it's a strong presence, but their witnesses basically said it could be better. So I don't know whether we could at least look at that. And certainly training came up lots of times, enhanced training, etc. Lots of things they're saying, the officers are saying we're doing them. We're doing it already. So. And whilst I'm sort of talking, can I congratulate our clerk for the excellent work on the document? I know that it then went to officers and then other things happened, but really detailed work. So thank you very much.
If I may, just a comment on the training piece, because I think we are doing a lot of training, and we are saying that we are delivering. We have quite a comprehensive training offer, but that's not to say that we're not reviewing it all the time. It's not to say that training doesn't need to be re-looked at regularly. So if there's anything that could be added, shouldn't be done, should be replaced, should be done differently, we're always going to be willing to listen to those recommendations. We're always going to be willing to review the training plan, and that's pretty much we're trying to make it an ongoing piece.
Yes, this is kind of additional rather than anything else, and it was something I heard or read this morning which suggested that over the country as a whole, something like 150,000 people showed an interest in fostering, but only 7,000 were accepted, and that the government was minded to change the criteria in terms of the type of person rather than changing the criteria in their suitability as individuals. And I wonder if that's something that affects us. Are we being too picky, if I may put it that way, whereas if people become parents in the old-fashioned sort of way, they're kind of random people rather than people who've been specially selected. So,
thank you. It's obviously a very topical question, because there is an ongoing national consultation at the moment. There was launched recently, and is looking at the future of fostering. There is an absolute very strong commitment from the from DFE and from the Minister about strengthening the fostering, increasing the number of foster carers, and focusing on foster care. And absolutely, we applaud that, because we believe that foster carers are really helpful, and they're really important to the offer to our children. The only thing that I would also say is that fostering, it's not, I would say, just simple parenting. Fostering is parenting plus, because we are dealing with children with significant needs, we are dealing with children with significant trauma, and they require expert people who will be addressing, who will be supporting them through their journey to be reconciling with that. The other thing that I would say, that the fostering is not the first placement option for our children. We always look at the family, we always look inside the family, we always look at kinship carers, kinship placement, which is a different strand of placement, which is done with family members. We look at fostering, obviously, and we're also always going to be having residential homes for those children who require that level of support. Is this going to be affecting us? Well, it's going to be affecting us probably as much as it will be affecting the rest of the country, but I am pretty confident that our system of recruiting foster carer is robust, and it's robust to the point that we recruit safe foster carers for our children. We need to make sure the foster carers we're recruiting have the skills, the ability, the willingness, and the motivation required to look after some of our most vulnerable children. And for that reason, there's never going to be, I'll be really worried if it was 100% throughput, 100%. Everyone who applies gets to be a foster carer. That will be significantly dangerous. And I think we'll be responding to the consultation that's happening at the moment, and then we'll see what the outcome of that is going to be.
Yeah, my concern wasn't with the skills that are obviously above average requirement compared to normal parenting. I'd taken that for granted. Maybe I should have been more explicit. It was whether there's a tendency for not those criteria, but other criteria to be applied too fastidiously.
We don't have any criteria that will exclude people because of their background, because of the fact they're working, they're single, they're not single, ethnicity, sexual orientation, none of that. So on the contrary, we are pretty inclusive on that, and I think we provided this committee with some data and figures regarding that. So I think in being too fastidious, we are applying all the regulatory assessments. We are doing all the assessments we need to do to the standard that they need to be done at the moment. If that changes, we're going to be looking at that. But I think I'll re-emphasize that our focus will have to remain the safety of our children. we have to remain to have the right carers to meet the needs of our children and to help them along the journey.
Any other questions or comments? Or go on, Miss Little, please.
Venture another one, which is on one of the ones that the officers have said a bit outside the scope, which is the one about seeking stability in the social worker assignments, and to ask if a child has a frequent change of social workers for whatever reason, it strikes me that it's bound to make life more difficult for the foster carers as well as for the child, because they're inevitably going to get different signals from different people. And did we not ought to be pressing for the maximum amount of stability that we can achieve in that area?
I would not disagree with that for a moment, because I do believe that stability is important for our children and consistency is important. We talked about consistency of approach, we have different trainings, we train everyone the same way, the same approach. Absolutely, consistency is really important, and consistency of message. The reason why this was suggested it's outside the scope, because we do have the children's social workers which are allocated to the social care, to the teams and work, but we also have supervising social workers who are the social workers who are allocated specifically for the foster carers. So I think we have quite a high stability of supervising social workers, and we will be looking to support that as much as possible. And also, I think we're not saying that we don't include and we don't focus on stability of children's social worker. Of course we do. In terms of what this report is trying, this review is looking at, is looking more of how the fostering provision is supported, rather than being how the child's plan and the child's social work involvement is being done. That was the only thing. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying it won't impact. I'm not saying it's not important for the child, and that is something that we are always keenly aware of.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, great. So Alex, thank you so much. So I guess, Ryan, I know I've just kind of blurted out loads of different sentences, and I apologise, and I can always share this with you offline, but I guess we're still at the stage of, are we finalising these now, or what are we doing?
If we're happy with those 5 kind of in principle, then we can just take away maybe the final wording of it, and if we're happy with the 5, then we can take that as it is.
Yeah, all right, great, thank you so much, and thank you, Ryan, for all your work on this. It's been really very hard, but very much appreciated. Okay, and then we now move to agenda item 8, which is a forward plan. We had an updated version which was shared separately to the main agenda. Any questions, comments, Councillor Sweeting?
Yes, it's the Best Start in Life Family Hub strategy. I don't think that's come to us, has it? So it's going to Cabinet. I may well have been asleep whilst it came to us, but I mean it's quite an important subject, and that's in the March meeting.
So I guess yeah. Okay. So Ryan, if you take that and just
want to come here first, we can look at that.
Okay, potentially, yeah. If you could just confirm either way, that would be great. Anything else on the forward plan? Nope. Then it's the work programme. Anything on the work programme? Councillor Sweeting.
Well, I think we all need to bring our sleeping bags to the next meeting, because we've got school place planning, annual standards report, SEND strategy, SEND sufficiency, Hillingdon education strategy, budget spending, Hillingdon music hub, and amalgamation. I mean, that really is a very weighty agenda. Can any of those slip to the next meeting? I mean, I know that it's important to be in the cycle, but I mean, you're talking about, for for example, school-placed planning, we know that we've got a dip in pupil numbers, and it's important to have a good look at that, I think. And that's going to take us at least a few minutes, let's put it that way.
Okay, so why don't we do this, Ryan, if you can just check, are there any items that we can push back to the next meeting? And then just let us know, that would be great. Okay, any other final comments, questions? Great. Okay, so the next meeting then is on the 12th of March. Thank you all for your contributions this evening, and a safe journey home.